How's it going, guys? Scott Elkington here. Today I am going to be talking about a chronic disease topic. Chronic disease is like the first thing that really kind of brought my attention to this whole plant-based realm. Today I'm going to be talking about diabetes and how plant-based nutrition can play a role in improving insulin sensitivity, hence improving diabetes in a lot of cases to the point where technically you don't even have diabetes anymore, even though according to mainstream medicine, it's an irreversible disease. But that is because the approaches that mainstream medicine takes, it can't reverse the condition. And so I'm going to be talking about this book. It's called Reversing Diabetes, the scientifically proven system for reversing diabetes without drugs. This is an amazing book. This is written by Dr. Neal Barnard, and he is the main guy who runs the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. If you haven't checked out his website, it's amazing. Tons of good resources. There's a whole database where you can find all kinds of recipes. The website, it's ccrm.org, and you can see his website and also check out his book because he really breaks it down, and he is citing all studies. It's awesome because he compares the traditional diabetes diet to this new approach to diabetes. And so basically the traditional approach to diabetes says your blood sugar is high, so we shouldn't put more carbs into the system. Let's just kind of give you consistent amounts of carbs at each meal and let the medications do their thing. And so the whole point behind the traditional approach is by having consistent carbs at each meal, your doctor will be able to adjust your medications in the proper way so that your blood sugars will remain stable. But it doesn't address the root cause. And so in this book, Dr. Neal Barnard talks about all the studies about what causes blood sugar to be too high. And the thing that causes the blood sugar to be too high is insulin is secreted by your pancreas in response to eating food and in response to blood sugars going up. And so that insulin attaches to cells throughout the whole body, and it is like a key. It opens up the cells and it lets the blood sugar in the form of glucose into the cells to be used as energy. Glucose and carbs are the body's main source of energy, and it is super important to get that energy into the cells so that they can do the work that they need to do. What's happening with the insulin that is not letting it open up the cells, and the key is not working properly? And what Dr. Neal Barnard explains, and it's through the studies that they've done, is that basically it's too much fat within the cells is gunking up the system. It's kind of like, imagine some gum in the lock and you're trying to put a key in it, but there's just gum in it. And that is that fat accumulation. Really good picture here. This is a picture of the cell. You can kind of see the idea. So this is the insulin floating around. It attaches to something on the outside of the cell, which opens these little channels for the glucose to come into the cell. But the problem is when you start getting insulin resistance and diabetes starts to come, or even pre-diabetes, these little globs of fat are accumulating inside the cell, and it's messing with, when the insulin attaches to the little receptor, the message is getting missed. So this is not happening. It's not opening up the cells, and that's why the blood sugar is getting high, because it's not going into the cells. And so what it comes down to is lowering the amount of fat in the diet. And by reducing the fat in the diet and favoring the plant-based foods, the cells will start to use up that fat and burn up that fat that's within them. And then all of a sudden, it happens pretty fast. They say within maybe 3 weeks, you can get your insulin sensitivity will improve. That's basically how it works, is the accumulation of fat within the cells, which causes the insulin to become less effective, less sensitive. In this book, he really breaks it all down, and then he has just 3 rules to follow when you're trying to reverse diabetes. And this works for type 2 diabetes or prediabetes as far as trying to actually reverse the condition. For type 1 diabetes, it still helps. It just makes it so that you don't require as much insulin. Majority of people, I think it's like 90% of people have type 2 diabetes or prediabetes, and so that's the one that I'll be focusing on the most, but this can absolutely benefit type 1. And so the 3 rules, the first one is to set all animal products aside, and that's because animal products, if you look at the percentage of calories coming from fat, it's typically around like no less than maybe 30%, and it could be up to maybe 50%. And the issue with the fats in the animal products is that it's all saturated fat. This is the unhealthy fats that your body can turn into cholesterol, which can drive up your cholesterol and cause other heart issues. But what we're talking about today is that the fat can accumulate in the cells as well and interfere with that message that insulin sends to the cells saying, open them up, let the sugars in so that we can get them into the cells, use them for energy, and let that blood sugar go down. And so set animal products aside is one of the 3 rules that he has for this program here. And then the second one is to go light on vegetable oils. Since the first rule is to not have any animal products, the second rule is focusing specifically on vegetable oil fats. Of course, butter wouldn't be included or any other animal fats because the first rule covered that. But the second rule, even olive oil. I know that people say olive oil is heart healthy, and it does have healthy fats, but it's the amount that you're taking in. And when you are, even if you are fully plant-based, you're taking in a bunch of vegetable oils, your body will not have any chance to get rid of the fat that's accumulated within the cells to improve that insulin sensitivity and the condition, either prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. And so that's all vegetable oils. It's not saying don't have any at all, but be very conscious, go very light on the added vegetable oils. They even do kind of recommend just going light on the high fat foods that are even plant foods, like your nuts and seeds and your avocados. It's having very, very small portions of those. They really want you to focus on 4 plant-based food groups that are within the center of their power plate. Whole grains, legumes meaning beans, fruits, and vegetables. It's not the best image, but they have better, more colorful ones, and I have a nice one that actually has pictures of food. But that's the idea of it. So no nuts and seeds are in that because the focus should really be on the plate. And then the third and final rule for following this program to improve insulin sensitivity and improve diabetes or prediabetes is to favor low glycemic index foods. And so the glycemic index is basically a measure of how fast different carb-containing foods will raise blood sugar. The highest number is 100, and so they basically put people in a lab and they give them pure glucose or even white bread, and that's considered 100. And then they look at their blood sugar every 15 minutes or every 30 minutes, and they see how big of a response, how big of a spike, and how quick it takes to get back. And so 100 is the highest number. That's basically white bread and glucose, straight glucose, or basically pure sugar. And so favoring ones that are in the either low or medium category. So a couple examples of that would be a baking potato is a high glycemic food. And so in this case, if you have diabetes, you're trying to reverse or improve the condition or improve your insulin sensitivity, you would want to, instead of having a regular baking potato, you'd want to choose the sweet potato or the yams because those are low glycemic foods. There's no portion control. It's just switching the types of foods that you're eating. When it comes to bread, it's interesting because white bread, of course, is a high glycemic food, but so is wheat bread. We wouldn't really think that because of the fibers that are in it. But what I learned recently is that when they add yeast to the bread rises, it gets all these little bubbles, air bubbles in it, and that makes it so that our body can digest that super fast. All the digestive enzymes just get around it and eat it up really fast, which raises the blood sugar. And so wheat bread really wouldn't be the best choice, but the low glycemic breads that you could have and not have to worry about restricting would be rye bread or pumpernickel sourdough bread. And then you could have as much as that as you want. As far as other foods, like beans are like the superfood group out of these, starch containing foods. Beans are pretty much all low glycemic. There might be maybe the Boston baked beans, like the ones with the sugar in it. That would be the one exception. But beans in themselves and lentils are all low glycemic. And so those would be really good choices when it comes to following this program. With the fruits, watermelon, for some reason, just happens to be a very high glycemic food. So watermelon would be something to try not to have too much of. Basically, all other fruits are more in the low glycemic area. One other exception would be overripe banana. If it's has the brown spots on it, you could tell it's kind of soft. The longer they're ripening, the higher the sugar content and the higher the glycemic index. People call it GI for short. Maybe you've heard that term before. Lower the GI, and so a green banana or slightly yellow banana would be lower glycemic index. And so those are the 3 rules. Set animal products aside, go light on the vegetable oils, and favor low glycemic foods. And Dr. Neal Barnard has seen amazing results with his patients in helping them to basically reverse their conditions in the majority of their cases. Of course, everybody is different, and it does depend how far progressed, the condition is, how much actual damage has been done to the pancreas, which secretes the insulin. This program will always improve the condition. It'll always help with reducing the medications that are needed. One really important thing to keep in mind is that when you're doing something like this, you should work really, really closely with your doctor, because your doctor is going to need to be in the loop about this. They're going to need to really be with you, adjusting your medications. Because if you're doing this and your insulin sensitivity is improving, that's amazing, that's awesome. But if it keeps on improving and getting better, and you're getting to, like, say, normal levels, and you're still taking, maybe insulin, maybe some other oral medication for diabetes, and it's still doing its thing, then you run the risk of getting low blood sugar or hypoglycemic. Very dangerous. You could end up going to the hospital for that, going into like a sort of coma type deal. And so obviously monitor your blood sugar really closely. You really should be keeping a log of your blood sugars and the foods that you're eating during this time. You should bring that to your doctor, bring that to your dietitian or whoever you're working with, and just, making sure that you're steadily going down, and then you can show your doctor the results of your blood sugars, how they're starting to go down, and the doctor will be able to reduce your medication to keep your blood sugars where they need to be. So can't stress that enough. It's so important to work with your doctor on this, let them know what you're doing, let them know about this book, and if you need fact sheets to give to your doctor so he doesn't have to read a whole book, I would be happy to provide that to you. I have some simple fact sheets about reversing diabetes, improving insulin sensitivity. It's like 2 to 4 pages, I think. I'm really enjoying reading this book. I think Dr. Barnard really, the language that he puts it, he breaks it down into very simple terms. And, I think that most people could understand the majority of this. It tells you how to start making changes, what specific foods to eat. And then the last 30 to 40 pages is just recipes that follow this program, that are low glycemic, that are, don't have much, if any, vegetable oils added to them. So highly recommend this resource if you are struggling with high blood sugars, or if you know someone who is. Definitely look into this, get them this book. And if you need that extra help and, just somebody to walk you through this process, this is what I do. I work for a physicians group during the day where I work with people with diabetes every single day, helping them make improvements to their life. And I also do my own side business where I offer nutrition coaching, which is a level up from what I do, at my day job, because I'm able to, really give people what they need and give them that higher level of attention. I have everything all in one app. So tracking the food, tracking blood sugars, weights. So just let me know if you need help with implementing any of these strategies, or if you just have any questions about this, or if you need the fact sheet to provide your doctor to get him on the same page that you are to start heading in this direction and start improving that insulin sensitivity, and hence your, the diabetes or pre-diabetes that's going on. So I hope that this helped spark your interest in taking this route. This is a more extreme version of, plant-based lifestyle, but it kind of has to be that way if you're going to have such a profound effect on diabetes and blood sugar. I think that the hardest part is probably having, the low fat. They want you to try to get like 10% of your calories from fat, which is pretty low. And so in order to do that, instead of using like cooking with oils and stuff like that, they recommend maybe using a little bit of water. If you want to add flavor, saute with veggie broth, that kind of thing, and replacing oils and baking with things like applesauce or smashed up bananas. And all of those tactics and techniques are in this book. So another reason I highly recommend that, and it is a really good read. So let me know in the comments, guys, what is something that you learned from this talk that you didn't know before, and are you interested in getting this book and starting to go that route, or are you going to get this book for somebody that you know who would benefit? So let me know in the comments, and see you guys next time. Peace.